Hello, welcome to Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I am your host, Annabelle. It is Tuesday. It is May. I have literally had the most, I guess it's been a restful May. But why is it that when I rest, I feel guilty, like I should be doing more? Perhaps it is the boomer mentality that my mother ingrained into me, where I feel like a terrible person when I rest and relax. We're trying to work on that, but you know what? One day at a time. So, I have a bunch of different episodes in the works, but today I'm going to do a cute little quickie. I'm going to tell a story called The Stone of Wisdom. I'm very excited. But interestingly, this story is actually written by Hans Christian Andersen, and I feel like we all have heard that name thrown about, but I didn't even realize how prolific Hans Christian Andersen what is happening? Hans Christian Andersen is. He is prolific. Some of the most famous stories that he has known to have written include The Emperor's New Clothes, The Little Mermaid, The Nightingale, The Steadfast Tin Soldier, The Red Shoes, The Princess and the Pea, The Snow Queen, The Ugly Duckling, The Little Match Girl, and Thumbelina. I didn't realize that he wrote all of these. And he was born semi-recently. Like, he was born in 1805, which isn't really that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And I grew up thinking that The Emperor's New Clothes and The Princess and the Pea were like really old stories, you know? So in a lot of ways, I think we got to give this guy some credit, because the stories that he tells evoke like as fairy tales that you would believe would be much older. And I think that like the art of storytelling in a lot of ways has suffered in the modern world. Maybe this is just my opinion, but my favorite stories are always stories that have elements of ancient fairy tales. There doesn't even have to be magic, but kind of like woven stories that are interwoven in a very interesting way, that kind of give you the impression of the macro experience. Like, what is that movie from Hong Kong? Okay, wait. It was the movie that The Departed was based off of. You know what I'm talking about? What movie was The Departed based on? Infernal Affairs. Infernal Affairs. If you haven't seen Infernal Affairs, it's incredible. Also, I mean, don't even get me started on Martin Scorsese, but Martin Scorsese had a perfect two film saga that he ruined. It's perfect. Sometimes you just, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Okay, whatever. I'm getting completely off track. Back on track, Annabelle. The reason why I love Infernal Affairs is because it weaves together a story about humans and humans lying to each other, and it creates this compelling woven tapestry of lies and intrigue and revenge, and like it's almost like 1001 Nights, right? There's also something biblical about it. It doesn't really matter what specifically the details are of a story, but I want something that's intriguing. I want something that ignites this flame of inspiration. And so I do have to give Hans Christian Andersen some credit, because I feel like a lot of the stories that he has written, or at least the ones I've heard of, do evoke something that is really primordial, human. So we are going to read his story. I'm actually going to read it to you verbatim today. Today is going to be a story time. But I'm like looking at Hans Christian Andersen's Wikipedia page, and there's a couple of things that I find really interesting. One of which was that Hans Christian Andersen's father, so Hans Christian Andersen was born in Copenhagen in Denmark in 1805, and fun fact, he was born on April 2nd, which makes him an Aries. Shout out to all my Aries babies. We love an Aries. You already know your boy's an Aries. But weirdly, April 2nd, I feel like I know 10 different Aries born on April 2nd. April 2nd is like a powerhouse day. Shout out to all my April 2nd babies. If you were born on April 2nd, email in esotericaandnonsense at gmail.com. But I'm reading here that Hans Christian Andersen's father introduced him to the Arabian Nights, which sparked his inspiration as a young child. So this really checks out for me, because a lot of his stories are giving this. So again, I will say it and I will say it again, but I do think that the Tales of the 1001 Nights, also known as the Arabian Nights, whatever you want to call it, is one of probably the best collection of literature known to humans. It is just so diverse, so intriguing, treacherous, romantic, beautiful, horrifying, devastating. Like, it's every part of humanity. It's so fucking good. And I have a 5-part episode about it. I'm also going to tell more stories in the future. Blah, 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 blah. Before I start reading this story, we have merch for this podcast. You can check it out in the show notes. If you want to support this podcast, please consider it. There's also a link in the show notes. There's also a Patreon. And if you're listening right now, I truly appreciate you. Let's get going. Let's have story time. Drink your water, drink your tea, settle in, because we are going to hear the story of the Stone of the Wise Man. Full transparency, I only read half of this story. So we are both going to be on a journey here. I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay. So, far away in the land of India, far away towards the east, at the end of the world, stood the tree of the sun. A noble tree, such as we have never seen and shall probably never see. The crown stretched out several miles around. It was really an entire wood. Each of its smallest branches formed, in its turn, a whole tree. Palms, beech trees, pines, plane trees, and various other kinds grew here, which were found scattered in all other parts of the world. They shot out like small branches from the great bows. And these large bows, with their windings and knots, formed, as it were, valleys and hills, clothed with velvety green and covered with flowers. Everything was like a wide, blooming meadow, or like the most charming garden. This tree is incredible. He's saying this tree has multiple varieties of trees growing out of it. The tree is the size of a forest, which grows trees from it. Like this, I'm here for this. Already I'm hooked. Okay. Here the birds from all quarters of the world assembled together. Birds from the primeval forests of America, the rose gardens of Damascus, from the deserts of Africa, in which the elephant and the lion boast of being the only rulers. the polar birds came flying hither, and of course the stork and the swallow were not absent. But the birds were not the only living beings. The stag, the squirrel, the antelope, and 100 other beautiful light-footed animals were here at home. The crown of the tree was a widespread, fragrant garden, and in the midst of it, where the great boughs raised themselves into a green hill, there stood a castle of crystal, with a view towards every quarter of heaven. Each tower was reared in the form of a lily. What? A crystal castle with towers in the shape of lilies? Oh my God. Like, we're going to have to change the vision board, babe, because this is it. Through the stem, one could ascend. What? Oh, okay. So he's saying that each tower is a lily, and the stem of each lily one could ascend, for within it was a winding stair. One could step out upon the leaves as upon balconies. And up in the calyx of the flower itself was the most beautiful, sparkling, round hall, above which no other roof rose, but the blue firmament with sun and stars. Holy fucking shit. This is so beautiful. Oh my God. I mean, I know I just read this, but just picture this, people. Picture this. A crystal castle with towers in the shape of lilies, winding staircases through these green stems, and in those little tiny little fingers, these tiny boys in the center of the flower, inside of that is a hall, a grand hall. And that the leaves and petals are balconies that you can walk onto, sunbathe, have your little glass of champagne. Hello. Oh my God. Hans Christian Andersen, you're incredible. Shout out to my boy, Aries. I'm sorry, Aries, you are so special and I love you. Okay, moving on. Just as much splendor, though in another way, appeared below, in the wide halls of the castle. Here, on the walls, the whole world around was reflected. One saw everything that was done, so that there was no necessity of reading any papers, and indeed papers were not obtainable here. Everything was to be seen in living pictures, if one only wished to see it, for too much is still too much even for the wisest man, and this man dwelt here. His name is very difficult, and you will not be able to pronounce it. Therefore, it may remain unmentioned. Bro, come on. I know this takes place in India, but like, don't even do that. That's fucked up. Hans. Okay. So this guy's gonna go unnamed because it's unpronounceable. I'm offended, but you know what? Let's so far strike one, okay? But for 1805, for 5 paragraphs in, I guess one strike, we can live with that. Let's see where this goes. Okay. He knew everything that a man on earth can know or can get to know. Every invention which had already been or which was yet to be made was known by him, but nothing more, for everything in the world has its limits. The wise King Solomon was only half as wise as he, and yet he was very wise, and governed the powers of nature, and held sway over potent spirits. Yes, Death itself was obliged to give him every morning a list of those who are to die during this day. But King Solomon himself was obliged to die too, and this thought it was which often in the deepest manner employed the inquirer, the mighty lord in this castle on the tree of the sun. He also, however high he might tower above men in wisdom, must die one day. Oh my God, this is so good. Okay. He knew that, and his children also must fade away, like the leaves of the forest, and become dust. He saw the human race fade away like the leaves on the tree, saw new men come to fill their places. But the leaves that fell off never sprouted forth again. They fell to dust, or were transformed into other parts of plants. What happens to man, the wise man asked himself, when the angel of death touches him? What may death be? The body is dissolved, and the soul? Yes, what is the soul? Whither doth it go? Oh my God, stop. Whither doth it go? To eternal life, says the comforting voice of religion. But what is the transition? Where does one live and how? Above in heaven, says the pious man. Thither we go, thither. Shut up. He literally says that. Thither we go, thither. I'm loving this, repeated the wise man, and fixed his eyes upon the moon and the stars. Up yonder? Can we bring back whither, thither, and yonder? Come on, people. But he saw from the earthly ball that above and below were alike changing their position, according as one stood here or there on the rolling globe. And even if he mounted as high as the loftiest mountains of earth rear their heads, to the air which we below call clear and transparent, the pure heaven, a black darkness spread abroad like a cloth, and the sun had a coppery glow and sent forth no rays, and our earth lay wrapped in an orange-colored mist. How narrow were the limits of the corporal eye, and how little the eye of the souls could see. How little did even the wisest know of which is the most important to us all. I mean, you make a good point, bro. No matter how wise a man could be and all-knowing in the earthly realm, what does he know of the spirit realm, of the life thereafter? And I mean, I'm just pontificating here, but quite honestly, that's why consciousness never ends. The journey of expanding and growing one's consciousness never ends because it's infinite. There are infinite lives to live here on earth and elsewhere, and there are infinite experiences to cycle through in the spirit realm. There is no answer, right? It's infinity. I mean, that's what I think. Okay. In the most secret chamber of the castle lay the greatest treasure of earth, the book of truth. Leaf for leaf, the wise man read it through. Every man may read in this book, but only by fragments. To many an eye that characters seems so to tremble. No. Okay, wait, I read that sentence wrong. To many an eye the characters seem to tremble, so that the words cannot be put together. On certain pages, the writing often seems so pale, so blurred, that only a blank leaf appears. The wiser man becomes, the more he will read, the wisest read most. He knew how to unite the sunlight and the moonlight with the light of reason of the hidden powers. And through this stronger light may things come clearly before him from the page. Oh my God. So he's saying that this wise man could combine sunlight and moonlight with the light of reason to unlock hidden powers and read this invisible ink. This is sick, dude. This is fucking sick. But in the division of the book whose title is Life After Death, not even one point was to be distinctly seen. That pained him. Should he not be able to hear upon earth, to obtain a light by which everything should become clear to him that stood written in the book of truth? Like the wise King Solomon, he understood the language of the animals and could interpret their talk and songs. Ah, do you hear that bird chirp? That's so cute. But that made him none the wiser. He found out the forces of plants and metals, the forces to be used for the cure of diseases, for delaying death, but none that could destroy death. In all created things that were within his reach, he sought the light that should shine upon the certainty of an eternal life, but he found it not. The book of truth lay before him with leaves that appeared blank. Christianity showed itself to him in the Bible with words of promise of an eternal life, but he wanted to read it in his book. But here he saw nothing written on the subject. I mean, hear me out though. This is a free will universe, so the afterlife could be anything. Like what I mean by that is it genuinely could be whatever you decide. It could be what the Bible explains if that's what you choose. It could be anything. I feel like that's not explored enough. Your beliefs and your wants can shape your reality as human, but can also shape your reality in the afterlife. You can genuinely build, create, manifest, exist in any realm, dimension, shape that you choose. So having this book be full of blank pages is kind of incredible. I mean, like, I'm living for this. Hans, I'm going to have to give you, I haven't finished this story, but this is riveting. Okay. So, he had 5 children, 4 sons, educated as well as the children of the wisest father could be, and a daughter, fair, mild, and clever, but blind. Yet this appeared no deprivation to her. Her father and brothers were outward eyes to her, and the vividness of her feelings saw for her. Never had the sons gone farther from the castle than the branches of the tree extended, nor had the sisters strayed from home. They were happy children in the land of childhood, and in the beautiful fragrant tree of the sun. Like all children, they were very glad when any history was related to them. And the father told them many things that other children would not have understood. But these were just as clever as most grown-up people are among us. He explained to them what they saw in pictures of life on the castle walls, and doings of men and the march of events in all the lands of earth. And often the sons expressed the wish that they could be present at all the great deeds and take part in them. And their father then told them that out in the world it was difficult and toilsome, that the world was not quite what it appeared to them as they looked forth upon from their beauteous home. He spoke to them of the true, the beautiful, and the good, and told them that these 3 held together in the world, and that under the pressure they had to endure, they became hardened into a precious stone, clearer than the water of the diamond, a jewel whose splendor had value with God, whose brightness outshone everything, and which was the so-called stone of the wise. This is so good. Okay, so just as a review, this primordial, enigmatic, allegorical stone is made out of the true, the beautiful, and the good, which under pressure calcifies into this precious stone. I'm not even mad at that. Okay. He told them how men could attain by investigation to the knowledge of the existence of God, and that through men themselves one could attain to the certainty that such a jewel as the stone of the wise existed. This narration, which would have exceeded the perception of other children, but these children understood it, and at length other children too will learn to comprehend its meaning. This is kind of reminding me of the Philosopher's Stone / alchemy, right? Like, is it a real stone, or is it but an allegory of ideals inside oneself that can create magic through alchemization? Okay, so they questioned their father concerning the true, the beautiful, and the good. And he explained it to them, told them many things, and told them also that God, when he made man out of dust and of earth, gave 5 kisses to his work, fiery kisses, heart kisses, which we now call the 5 senses. Through these true, the beautiful, and the good is seen, perceived, and understood. Through these it is valued, protected, and furthered. 5 senses have been given corporally and mentally, inwardly, outwardly, to body and soul. The children reflected deeply upon these things. They meditated upon them by day and night. Then the eldest of the brothers dreamt a splendid dream. Strangely enough, the second brother had the same dream, and the third, and the fourth brother likewise. All of them dreamt exactly the same thing, namely that each went out into the world and found the stone of the wise, which gleamed like a beaming light on his forehead, when in the morning dawn he rode back on his swift horse over the velvety green meadows of his home into the castle of his father, and the jewel threw such a heavenly light and radiance upon the leaves of the book that everything was illuminated that stood written concerning the life beyond the grave. But the sister dreamt nothing about what was going out into the wide world. It never entered her mind. Her world was her father's house. I shall ride forth into the wide world, said the eldest brother. I must try what life is like there, and go to and fro among men. I will practice only the good and true. With these I will protect the beautiful. Much shall change for the better when I am there. Now his thoughts were bold and great, as our thoughts generally are at home. But before we have gone forth into the world and have encountered wind and rain and thorns and thistles, that's some real shit. We're like, right, all of us talk some big game from the comforts of our couch. That's so fucking real. In him and in all his brothers, the 5 senses were highly developed, inwardly and outwardly. But each of them had one sense which in keenness and development surpassed the other 4. In the case of the eldest, his preeminent sense was sight. This was to do him especial service. He said he had eyes for all time, eyes for all nations, eyes that could look into the depths of the earth, where the treasures lie hidden, and deep into the hearts of men, as though nothing but a pane of glass were placed before them. He could read more than we can see on the cheek that blushes or grows pale, in the eye that droops or smiles. Stags and antelopes escorted him to the boundary of his home towards the west. And there the wild swans received him and flew northwest. He followed them, and now he had gone far out into the world, far from the land of his father that extended eastward to the land of the earth. But how? He opened his eyes in astonishment. Many things were here to be seen, and many things appear very different when a man beholds them with his own eyes, or when he merely sees them in a picture, as the son had done in his father's house. However faithful the picture may be. At the outset, he nearly lost his eyes in astonishment at all the rubberish and all the masquerading stuff put forward to represent the beautiful. But he did not lose them, and soon found full employment for them. He wished to go thoroughly and honestly to work in the understanding of the beautiful, the true, and the good. But how were these represented in the world? He saw that often the garland that belonged to the beautiful was given to the hideous, that the good was often passed by without notice, while mediocrity was applauded when it should have been hissed off. People looked to the dress and not to the wearer, asked for a name and not for desert, and win more by reputation than by service. It was the same thing everywhere. That's some real shit. I see I must attack those things vigorously, he said, and attacked them with vigor accordingly. But while he was looking for the truth, came the evil one, the father of lies. Gladly would the fiend have plucked out the eyes of the seer. But that would have been too direct. The devil works in a more cunning way. He let him see and seek the true and the good. But while the young man was contemplating them, the evil spirit blew one mote after another into each of his eyes, and such a proceeding would be hurtful even to the best sight. Then the fiend blew upon the motes so that they became beams, and the eyes were destroyed. The seer stood like a blind man in a wide world that had no faith in it. He lost his good opinion of it and himself. And when a man gives up the world and himself, all is over with him. Over, said the wild swan, who flew across the sea towards the east. Over, twittered the swallows, who likewise flew eastward towards the tree of the sun. That was not good news that they carried to the young man's home. I fancy the seer must have fared badly, said the second brother. But the hearer may have a better fortune. For this one possessed the sense of hearing in an eminent degree. He could hear the grass grow, so quick was he to hear. He took a hearty leave of all at home and rode away, provided with good abilities and intentions. The swallows escorted him, and he followed the swans, and he stood far from his home in the wide world. But he experienced the fact that one may have too much of a good thing. His hearing was too fine. He not only heard the grass grow, but could hear every man's heart beat, in sorrow and in joy. The whole world was to him like a great clockmaker's workshop, wherein all the clocks were going tick, 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 and all the turret clocks striking ding, dong. Ding, dong, darling. Have you guys ever seen Glow Up? I'm sorry. Ding, dong, that darling. That is a ding, dong. If you know, you know. It was unbearable. For a long time his ears held out, but at last all the noise and screaming became too much for one man. There came blackguard boys of 60 years old, for years alone don't make men, and raised a tumult in which the hearer might certainly have laughed, but for the applause which followed, and which echoed through every house and street, and was audible even in the country high road. I mean, honestly, this is real because I know people that sometimes can like hear other people's thoughts, and it can actually be maddening because you start it's unnerving. Like you can never get a moment of silence, and obviously most people can't hear other people's thoughts. So when you start hearing other people's thoughts, it's isolating. You're like, are you hearing that? You're just hearing so many things that you kind of start going a little bit crazy, especially if you're in a fucking city. Ugh, no thanks. Falsehood thrust itself forward and played the master. The bells on the fool's cap jangled and declared that they were church bells, and the noise became too bad for the hearer, and he thrust his fingers into his ears. I'm sorry, that is so good. The bells on the fool's cap jangled and declared they were church bells. Like, that is so good. Hans Christian Andersen is a fucking visionary. Okay. He thrust his fingers into his ears, but still he could hear false singing and bad sounds, gossip and idle words, scandal and slander, groaning and moaning without and within. Heaven help us. He thrust his fingers deeper and deeper into his ears, but at last the drums burst. Now he could hear nothing at all of the good, the true, and the beautiful, for his hearing was to have been the bridge by which he had crossed. He became silent and suspicious, trusted no one at last, not even himself, and no longer hoping to find and bring home the costly jewel, he gave it up and gave himself up. And that was the worst of all. The birds who winged their flight towards the east brought tidings of this, till the news reached the castle in the tree of the sun. I will try now, said the third brother. I have a sharp nose. Now that was not said in very good taste, but it was his way, and one must take him as he was. He had a happy temper and was a poet, a real poet. He could sing many things that he could not say, and many things struck him far earlier than they occurred to others. I can smell fire, he said, and he attributed to this sense of smelling which he possessed in a high degree, a great power in the region of the beautiful. Every fragrant spot in the realm of the beautiful has his frequenters, he said. One man feels at home in the atmosphere of the tavern, among the flaring tallow candles, where the smell of spirits mingles with the fumes of bad tobacco. Another prefers sitting among the overpowering scent of jasmine, or scenting himself with a strong clove oil. This man seeks out a fresh sea breeze, while that one climbs the highest mountain tops and looks down upon the busy little life beneath. Thus he spoke. It seemed to him as if he had already been out in the world, as if he had already associated with men and known them. But this experience arose from within. It was the poet within him, a gift of heaven, and bestowed on him in his cradle. He bade farewell to his paternal roof in the tree of the sun, and departed on foot through the pleasant scenery of home. Arrived at its confines, he mounted on the back of an ostrich, which runs faster than a horse, and afterwards, when he fell in the wild swans, He swung himself on the strongest of them, for he loved change, and away he flew over the sea to distant lands with great forests, deep lakes, mighty mountains, and proud cities. And wherever he came, it seemed as if sunshine traveled with him across the fields, for every flower, every bush, every tree exhaled a new fragrance, in the consciousness that a friend and protector was in the neighborhood, who understood them and knew their value. The crippled rosebush reared up its twigs, unfolded its leaves, and bore the most beautiful roses. Everyone could see it, and even the black, damp wood sail noticed its beauty. "I will give my seal to the flower," said the snail. "I have spit at it and can do no more for it." Thus it always fares with the beautiful in this world, said the poet, and he sang a song concerning it, sang it in his own way, but nobody listened. Then he gave the drummer 2 pence and a peacock's feather. Okay, wait. 2 pence and a peacock's feather. So in Britain, a 2 pence is slang for like a pussy, like a vagina, and like we always say peacocking to mean like a guy like trying to show off. So like a 2 pence and a peacock's feather is giving like a pussy and a dick, right? A pepper and a tuppence. Am I crazy, or is that what it's giving? Please write in your response. Okay. He then gave the drummer 2 pence and a peacock's feather, and set the song for the drum. And it had drummed in all the streets of the town. And the people heard it and said, "That is a well-constructed song." What like an 1805 thing to say. That is a well-constructed song. Like, come on, dude. Okay. Then the poet sang several songs of the beautiful, the true, and the good. His songs were listened to in the tavern where the tallow candles smoked, in the fresh meadow, in the forest, and on the high seas. It appeared as if this brother was to have better fortune than the 2 others. But the evil spirit was angry at this, and accordingly he set to work with incense powder and incense smoke, which he can prepare so artfully as to confuse an angel, and how much more, therefore, a poor poet. The evil one knows how to take that kind of people. He surrounded the poet so completely with incense that the man lost his head and forgot his mission and his home, and at last himself, and ended in smoke. But when the little birds heard of this, they mourned, and for 3 days they sang not one song. The black wood snail became blacker still, not for grief, but for envy. "They should have strewed incense for me," she said. But it was I who gave him his idea, and for the most famous of his songs, the drung song of the way of the world. It was I who spat at the rose. I can bring witness to the fact. But no tidings of all this penetrated the poet's home in India, for all the birds were silent for 3 days, and when the time of mourning was over, their grief had been so deep that they had forgotten for whom they wept. That's the usual way. Is it? Okay. "Now I shall have to go out into the world to disappear like the rest," said the 4th brother. He had just as good as a wit as the 3rd, but he was no poet, though he could be witty. Those 2 had filled the castle with cheerfulness, and now the last cheerfulness was going away. Sight and hearing has always been looked upon as the two chief senses of men, and as the two that is most desirable to sharpen. The other senses are looked upon as of less consequence. But that was not the opinion of his son. He had especially cultivated his taste in every respect, and taste is very powerful. It holds sway over what goes into the mouth, and also over what penetrates into the mind. And consequently, this brother tasted everything that was stored up in bottles and pots, saying that this was the rough work of his office. Every man was to him a vessel in which something was seething, every country an enormous kitchen, a kitchen of the mind. That was no delicacy, he said. He wanted to go out and try what was delicate. Perhaps fortune may be more favorable to me than it was to my brothers, he said. I shall start on my travels, but what conveyance shall I choose? Are air balloons invented yet? He asked his father, who knew of all the inventions that had been made, or that were to be made. But air balloons had not yet been invented, nor steamships, nor railways. Good. Then I shall choose an air balloon, he said. My father knows how they are made and guided. Nobody has invented them yet, and consequently the people will believe that this is an aerial phantom. But when I have used the balloon, I will burn it, and for this purpose you must give me a few pieces of the invention that will be made next. I mean chemical matches. And he obtained what he wanted and flew away. The birds accompanied him farther than they had flown with the other brothers. They were curious to know what would be the result of the flight, and more of them came sweeping by. They thought that he was some new bird, and he soon had a godly following. The air became black with birds. They came on like a cloud of locusts over the land of Egypt. Now he was out in the wide world. The balloon descended over the greatest cities, and the aeronaut took up his station on the highest point, on the church steeple. The balloon rose again, which it ought not to have done. Where it went is not known, but that was not a matter of consequence, for it was not yet invented, and he sat on the church steeple. The birds no longer hovered around him. They had got tired of him, and he was tired of them. All the chimneys in the town were smoking merrily. Those are altars erected to thy honor, said the wind, who wished to say something agreeable to him. He sat boldly up there and looked down upon the people in the street. There was one stepping along, proud of his purse, another of the key he carried at his girdle. Though they had nothing to unlock, one proud of his moth-eaten coat, another of his wasted body. Vanity! I must hasten downward, dip my finger in the pot and taste, he said. But for a while I will sit here, for the wind blows so pleasantly against my back. I'll sit here so long as the wind blows. I'll enjoy a slight rest. It is good to sleep long in the morning when one has much to do, says the lazy man. I'll stop here so long as the wind blows, for it pleases me. I'm sorry. That I relate to that so fucking hard. It is good to sleep long in the morning when one has much to do, says the lazy man. Shut up right now. That is the story of my life. Literally, put that on a shirt. It is good to sleep long in the morning when one has much to do, says the lazy man. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm putting that on a shirt. That's going to be in the merch. It's going to be available in the merch, you guys. You best trust and believe. That is so fucking iconic. It's so true though. Like, why does it feel better to sleep in when you have more to do? Like, oh my God, I'm dying. Okay, so, and there he sat, but he was sitting upon the weathercock of the steeple. What? What's the weathercock? Oh, the weathercock. Duh. Okay, sorry. Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. The weathercock is that like north, south, east, west thing that turns, you know? Okay. Okay, so he was sitting upon the weathercock of the steeple, which kept turning round and round with him, so that he was under the false impression that the same wind still blew, so he might stay up there a goodly while. But in India, in the castle of the tree of the sun, it was solitary and still, since the brothers had gone away one after another. It goes not well with them, said the father. They will never bring the gleaming jewel home. It is not made for me. They are gone. They are dead. And he bent down over the book of truth and gazed at the page on which he should read the life after death. But for him, nothing was to be seen or learned upon it. The blind daughter was his consolation and joy. She attached herself with sincere affection to him. For the sake of his peace and joy, she wished the costly jewel might be found and brought home. With kindly longing, she thought of her brothers. Where were they? Where did they live? She wished sincerely that she might dream of them. But it was strange. Not even in dreams could she approach them. But at length one night, she dreamt that the voices of her brothers sounded across her, calling to her from the wide world. She could not refrain, but went far, far away. And yet it seemed in her dream that she was still in her father's house. Okay, wait. I kind of like spaced out while I was reading that. She wished that she would dream of her brothers, but it was strange, not even in dreams could she approach them. Okay, but at length one night, she dreamt that the voices of her brothers sounded, and they were calling her from the wide world. She could not refrain, but went far, far out. But yet it seemed in her dream that she was still in her father's house. Okay, got it. I'm caught up. Sorry. Okay. She did not meet her brothers, but she felt, as it were, a fire burning in her hand. But it did not hurt her, for it was the jewel that she was bringing to her father. When she awoke, she thought for a moment that she still held the stone. But it was the knob of her distaff that she was grasping. What's a distaff? Is that like the edge of the... Is that like a bed knob and a broomstick situation? Distaff. Let's Google it, people. A stick or spindle onto which wool or flax is wound for spinning. Okay. It's one of those like spinning bros, a spinning tool. Okay. Okay, but it was the knob of her distaff that she was grasping. During the long nights, she had spun incessantly, and round the distaff was turned a thread, finer than the finest web of a spider. Human eyes were unable to distinguish the separate threads. She had wetted them with her tears, and the twist was strong as a cable. She rose, and her resolution was taken. The dream must be made a reality. It was night, and her father slept. She pressed a kiss on his hand, and then took her distaff and fastened the end of the thread to her father's house. But for this, blind as she was, she would never have found her way home. To the thread she must hold fast, and trust not to herself or to others. From the tree of the sun she broke 4 leaves. These she would confide to the wind and weather, that they might fly to her brothers as a letter and a greeting, in case she did not meet them in the wide world. How would she fare out yonder, she, the poor blind child? But she had the invisible thread to which she could hold fast. She possessed a gift which all others lacked. This was thoroughness, and in virtue of this, it seemed as if she could see the tips of her fingers and hear down into her very heart. Did you hear that? That was my neck cracking. Okay. And quietly she went forth into the noisy, whirling, wonderful world. And wherever she went, the sky grew bright. She felt the warm ray. The rainbow spread itself out from the dark world through the blue air. She heard the song of the birds and smelt the scents of orange groves and apple orchards so strongly that she seemed to taste it. Soft tones and charming songs reached her ear, but also howling and roaring, and thoughts and opinions sounded in strange contradiction to each other. Into the innermost depths of her heart penetrated the echoes of human thoughts and feelings. One chorus sounded darkly. The life of earth is a shadow vain, a night created for sorrow. But then came another strain. The life of earth is the scent of the rose, and with its sunshine and its pleasure. And if one's strophe sounded painfully, each mortal thinks of himself alone. This truth has been manifested. On the other side, the answer pleaded forth, a mighty stream of warmest love, all through the world shall guide us. She heard indeed the words. In the little petty whirl here below, each thing shows men and paltry, but then come also the comfort. Many things great and good are achieved, that the ear of man heareth never, and if sometimes the mocking strain sounded around her, join in the common cry with a jest, destroy the good gifts of the giver. In the blind girl's heart a stronger voice repeated, to trust in thyself and in God is best. His good will be done forever. And whenever she entered the circle of humankind and appeared among young or old, the knowledge of the true, the good, and the beautiful beamed into their hearts. Whether she entered the study of the artist, or the festive, decorated hall, or the crowded factory with its whirring wheels, it seemed as though a sunbeam were stealing in. As if the sweet strings sounded, the flower exhaled its perfume, and a living dewdrop fell upon the exhausted blood. But the evil spirit could not see this and be content. He has more cunning than 10,000 men, and he found out a way to compass his end. He betook himself to the marsh, collected little bubbles of stagnant water, and passed over them a sevenfold echo of lying words to give them strength. Then he pounded up paid-for heroic poems and lying epitaphs, as many as he could get, boiled them into tears that envy had shed, put upon them rouge he had scraped from faded cheeks, and of these he composed a maiden, with the aspect and gait of the blessed blind girl, the angel of thoroughness. And then the evil one's plot was in full progress. The world knew not which of the two was the true one, and indeed, how should the world know? To trust in thyself and in God is best. His good will be done forever, sung the blind girl in full faith. She entrusted the 4 green leaves from the tree of the sun to the winds as a letter and a greeting to her brothers, and had full confidence that they would reach their destination and that the jewel would be found which outshines all the glories of the world. From the forehead of humanity it would gleam even to the castle of her father. Even to my father's house, she repeated. Yes, the place of the jewel is on earth, and I shall bring more than the promise of it with me. I feel its glow. It swells more and more in my closed hand. Every grain of truth, were it ever so fine, which the sharp wind carried up and whirled towards me, I took up and treasured. I let it be penetrated by the fragrance of the beautiful, of which there is so much in the world, even for the blind. It took the sound of the beating heart, engaged in what is good, and added to the first. It took the sound of the beating heart, engaged in what is good, and added it to the first. All that I bring is but dust, and still it is the dust of the jewel we seek, and in plenty. I have my whole hand full of it. And she stretched forth her hand towards her father. She was soon at home. She traveled thither in the flights of thoughts, never having quitted her hold of the invisible thread from the paternal home. Okay, so she just teleported. It sounds like she's ascending right now. Okay. The evil powers rushed with hurricane fury over the tree of the sun, pressed with a wind blast against the open doors, and into the sanctuary where lay the book of truth. I will be blown away by the wind, said the father as he seized the hand she had opened. No, she replied with quiet confidence. It cannot be blown away. I feel the beam warming my very soul. And the father became aware of a glancing flame, there where the shining dust poured out of her hand over the book of truth. That was to tell the certainty of an everlasting life. And on it stood one shining word, one only word, believe. And with the father and daughter were again the 4 brothers. When the green leaf fell upon the bosom of each, a longing for home had seized him and led them back. They had arrived. The birds of passage and the stag, the antelope, and all the creatures of the forest followed them, for all wished to have a part in their joy. We have often said, where a sunbeam bursts through a crack in the door into the dusty room, how a whirling column of dust seemed circling round. But this was not poor and insignificant like the common dust, for even the rainbow is dead in color compared with the beauty which showed itself. Thus from the leaf of the book, with the beaming word believe, arose every grain of truth, decked with the charms of the beautiful and the good, burning brighter than the mighty pillar of the flame that led Moses and the children of the Hebrews through the desert. And from the word believe, the bridge of hope arose, spanning the distance, even to the immeasurable love in the realms of the infinite. And that, my dear friend, is the story of the stone of the wise man. That was so cool. You know what this was reminding me of? This is kind of reminding me of the never-ending story. Like, the moral of that story is that to believe gives life. Like, to believe in something makes something eternal. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, whatever you believe is what your afterlife will be. And like whatever your beliefs are is what your future will be. And it's ever changing depending on your beliefs and how they are changing. I honestly truly enjoyed that story. Shout out to Hans Christian Andersen, my Aries baby. I loved that. That was so fun. My wish for humanity is that everyone can find their art form. I think that art and creativity is our greatest gift as human beings, and we all have our own art form. I think the obvious art forms are often painting, drawing, whatever, but there are so many things that can be art forms that are less obvious. Gardening, gymnastics, like literally anything can be an art form, and a lot of it has to do with vision. What is the vision? In my opinion, art is a perspective, an inspired perspective. And I truly wish that for all human beings, because I think it could build a much more beautiful world where we build and create, and that even the darkest things can be used as fertilizer for future creations. And I'm truly impressed with Hans Christian Andersen. That was fucking good. If you like this podcast, if you want me to cover something, please email in. If you want to support this podcast, please consider doing so. Buy some merch. All of the information is in the show notes. And I just want to extend some compassion to human beings right now. Being a human is really hard, and it can be really sad. It can be really scary. It can be really painful. It can be really draining and really depressing. It can feel like prison in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it can be like the coolest, most exciting, romantic, visceral, pleasurable, orgasmic thing. And I pray and wish that for all living beings. I wish that somehow, some way, that everyone can find their own personal ecstasy, and to believe that it's possible, to believe in themselves. Because as silly or as corny as it sounds, there are endless possibilities that await us, and what we believe in will dictate what manifests. I'm sending you so much love and a big hug. Over and out, baby.